Welcome to SF DocFest. I'm Chris Metzler, one of the programmers here. We're celebrating our 20th year, and one of the things we love to do is be able to kind of bring interesting documentaries from all around the world, and ideally filmmakers when we can, to share their films. So lucky enough, you saw this terrific film, Meltdown in Dixie, and we have the director, Emily Harold, with us. Thank you for being here, Emily.
Hi, I'm really excited to be with you all virtually.
Yes, it's definitely been a weird world, but I guess it's been a weird world for some time now. Maybe a good place to start is what made you kind of decide to go down this kind of rabbit hole and know that there was kind of a story you wanted to tell here.
Sure. So I'm originally from Orangeburg, South Carolina, which is where the film is set, and that Confederate flag is pretty infamous in town. It's been there probably since I was about 8 or 9. And, I always knew that's where the flag was. And, driving by, you can't miss it. And so in 2014, 2015, an ice cream shop opened on the corner. And everyone kind of just assumed that, the ice cream shop owner was keeping up the flag because he wanted it there. And while that was, to some extent true, he had a very fast change of heart after the horrific events of the Charleston massacre in the summer of 2015, and decided he wanted to try and bring it down. And that's when he kind of went public with the fact that he didn't own the property where the flag flies. And so at that point, I kind of piqued my interest. Everyone was kind of wondering what's going to happen. And I, a few months later, after, it just stayed in my head, this story, I reached out to the ice cream shop owner, and then on a whim to the Sons of Confederate Veterans, because they're the ones that are actually flying the flag. And, at the beginning of all documentaries, you never know if people are going to respond. But everyone got back to me and said they were willing to talk, and we kind of went from there.
Cool. And there's always these kind of discussions in documentary circles of insiders versus outsiders and things. And so what do you think, what's the perspective that you think you brought to your filmmaking approach? And having grown up and lived there, how do you think that affected access or even exploring some of the nuances in the story?
Sure. So, being born and raised in Orangeburg, I know the culture of the community. It's baked into who I am. So that was not something I needed to learn. It was just something that innately I know and I knew. And so I was able to bring that kind of perspective to the story. And I think you're totally right. I think the other big part of it was the access part. Everybody either knew me somehow or knew somebody or knew my family. And I think that just made people a lot more comfortable. There's a lot of distrust of the media going on, and just being able to say they knew where I went to school. They knew where I graduated. I think that just gave everyone a peace of mind that made them comfortable to talk with me.
So we had a little Zoom hiccup there. Can you hear me now, Emily? Great. While you were growing up there, I mean, how aware were you of like the Confederate flag, and was that in kind of larger discussions, or was it just this kind of omnipresent, kind of subtext to things,
Sure. I would say growing up and even now, the topic of the Confederate flag is not something you discuss in polite conversation. So, I was very aware of it. I grew up in a very progressive family. And, we did not shop at that restaurant. Like, that was just something you just don't go there. And there are a lot of people in Orangeburg that's their same, they just don't stop at that corner ever. So yeah, you just, you knew about it. I think I knew what it stood for. But you don't talk about it, and I think that's another part of why it was really important to me to try and get as many voices on this as possible, because we exist in these bubbles that we build. And I think in the last 4 years, 5 years in particular, we've seen that these bubbles are not helpful for society. So I really hope that the film encourages a dialogue. I think it's a starting point for a conversation, for people to, have meaningful, open, honest conversations.
Cool. When, like now that the film's done, was there anything that kind of surprised you during the making of it?
Yeah, I would say the biggest surprise was that there wasn't more support on the part of the Orangeburg leadership to get the flag down. Orangeburg is a majority African American town. The mayor is an African American man. The city council is very diverse, and it was an issue that they just were not vocal on, and really were very hands off. And that was surprising initially. But I think, as for everyone that's seen the film, we go into that. I think there's still a lot of fear in the Black community, and fear in, just progressive circles to some extent, because, the civil rights movement wasn't all that long ago. And a lot of people lived through that and experienced violence. So yeah, I think that was probably the biggest.
Nice. Well, you made a terrific film, and I guess, after people see the film, what is it, not that you necessarily have a message per se, but like, what would you want them to kind of continue to think about and to kind of better understand both where you're from, but also, the things that you'd like them to kind of, carry forth after watching the film?
Well, I hope it puts people outside of their comfort zones. I think ultimately that's what I want. Because I think this is an uncomfortable topic, and we're not going to move forward on this until people are willing to confront viewpoints that they don't agree with, and come to some sort of conclusion. So I think ultimately that's what I want. Is I want people to re-examine where they stand on this issue, re-examine how we're dealing with it as a society, and maybe encourage them to talk to someone about it, get out of these bubbles that we've built, have conversations. And I mean, hopefully this will be an issue that, maybe this is very naive of me, but, maybe in 30, 40 years, this won't be such a big issue. Still, that's so divisive.
Yeah, one will hope for it. Well, thanks for kind of exploring this story with such nuance, and also just kind of an intriguing perspective. So, thanks again for being part of DocFest, Emily.
I'm really excited that you guys brought the film to San Francisco.
Most definitely. Have a great day.
All right, bye.